listening to your story, it's a story to me of somebody who some may call it, distracted or dissatisfied or whatever. But to me, it all makes perfect sense that you were discovering your calling. Do you view it that way? Do you feel like you found your calling? Do you, and I want to be clear too about your calling. Do you feel like emergency medicine is your calling, or do you feel like there's a bigger calling and emergency medicine fits very well with that calling? How do you think about those things?
Well, I think I identify more with the latter. Um, and and so two things. Number one, I feel like that your calling, we should allow ourselves the freedom and flexibility to have it change over time. And in a lot of ways, that can not only avoid a crisis at any point emotionally, or let alone a midlife crisis, but it also is engaging in a way that can energize your entire life in different ways at different times, right? So for me, emergency medicine, as I said before, I learned to love it as a way of practicing medicine, as a way of impacting using science and evidence, hard facts, and as a framework, and then blending in more nuance-based judgment calls, maybe interpretations of certain pieces of evidence, and then blending that with human nature and figuring out how people work, and kind of blending it all together. That really is what gives me the most energy, fundamentally with what I do. In terms of what gives me the most energy beyond that, I found myself right after residency attracted to and attracted by leadership, right? So as soon as I was done with my training, I ended up in an administrative role. But again, it's a thing where it both drives me and creates enough discomfort. I guess maybe that's not the best word, discomfort or instability, not instability, maybe dissonance, to be able to spur me into other roles, other different locations, because I'm not the type of person to give up much on principle, right? So in other words, I look at the evidence, and once I make a decision about that evidence, you'd have to come with better evidence or more evidence opposite that, in order for me to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's move in that direction. And of course, we have the whole metric thing and other stuff. So certain things have happened along the way with every full-time role I've had, employed role I've had, that have spurred me to move to better situations, where maybe one or two things were improved, but then through that, other things came to light that I got to a point where I could say, yes, we need to address this issue, but there were other environmental factors that were not only beyond my control, but beyond my influence, that made it and drove me to take advantage of other opportunities. So that's when I more or less discovered being a free agent is really better suited.